The whisper bit Eon's ear again as he took one step down a fork in the road. "Ah, what now?" he yelled at the silver fox-like creature on his shoulder. The little critter leaned in and whispered in his ear. "Other way, master. The hag's hut is to the east." Theon had found this enigmatic critter lost and hurt in the Black Forest a few months ago. He'd heard tales that whispers never let their masters astray, so he opted to keep it close. The creature's fur was as much real silver as it looked, and the shed hairs could be exchanged for a good deal of coins. The wings extending from the whisper's tail were white like ivory, but wouldn't hold it in the air until they grew in some more. The only unnerving detail was its eyes, those two empty voids of black that felt like they stared into his soul. On the road, Eon had encountered a fork with a sign showing the way to Gwen the hag's hut. He'd come to her several times to investigate the curses on artifacts he'd found in his travels. He tried to follow the usual route, but his whisper told him to go the other way. Why? Gwen's hut has always been this way. The whisper hopped on top of his head, something it often did to get a better vantage point. Not today, master, she moved. Eon knew Gwen occasionally moved her hut around to avoid providing service to every adventurer who came looking for her. What concerned him most now was that the whisper seemed to know not only this, but where she was now, without any prior knowledge. "And just how are you so sure?" The whisper put its head down. "I have my ways, master. Head east." Eon didn't quite trust that answer, but he didn't want to upset the whisper if he went against its directions. The thing would start whining and squealing like a petty child if he did. Fine. But if she's not there, she's there. Eon reluctantly took the east path. His whisper remained silent as he walked. It never led him astray, but the knowledge it seemed to have, despite having no tangible source, had him doubting its legitimacy. The path was much less traveled. It meandered through a rougher area of this forest, and the underbrush encroached heavily. Twigs snapped under Eon's boots as he walked, and thorns tugged at his cloak like accusing fingers. After a while of walking through dense brush invading the unkempt path, Gwen's hut came into view. "Well, I'll be damned. Told you so." Cocky fur ball. Eon walked through the brush toward the hut, the whisper still riding atop his head. He stepped up the rickety stairs and knocked on the door. The place looked like it would crumble under a gentle breeze, so he always moved with caution whenever he visited the old hag. The support beams the house stood atop resembled tree stumps standing atop their roots rather than digging them into the soil. All the better for it to pick them up and change locations at a moment's notice. The roof looked as if the tiles should have peeled away years ago, and the windows had all been boarded up, making the hut look abandoned. "Just come in. Don't act all cold-footed here." As usual, Gwen was cranky and insistent. Eon knew she had some kind of enchantment on the hut that stopped it falling apart like a block of dust, but he still exercised caution to the point that it annoyed her. He stepped inside and found Gwen with her crooked nose to a counter, inspecting a trinket she'd found herself. The hut, as per usual, was a mess of old furniture, warped wood, and bundles of dried and unusual herbs dangling from every other available place. The smell of dry leaves and old plants wasn't entirely unpleasant, but certainly overwhelming. "Didn't think you'd find me so soon, Eon," she crowed. "I had a little help." Eon pointed to the whisper still sitting on his head. Gwen looked up from her current project. A whisper? Those things are rare in these parts. Found him in the Black Forest. Eon clutched the creature and held it closer to his chest. The Black Forest? That forsaken place. A whisper doesn't belong there either. I suspect he had a previous master who dumped him there. I found him battered and starving, so I took care of him. He's been sticking with me since. Told me you were out here instead of your last spot. Gwen huffed as she brushed a loose strand of white hair away from her face. Whispers tend to know things. I'm not surprised. He glanced at the critter in his arms. Really? The old hag hobbled around the counter to get a better look at the whisper. Aye, rumour beasts, some people call them, since the truths they speak often ignited conflicts in larger settlements, especially when the person running them had crooked intentions. Eon could imagine such a scenario. A whisper could discreetly reveal a selfish mayor's greed, which would spur rumours and doubts in the townsfolk that he desperately want to silence, ultimately throwing fuel into the fires of suspicion and drawing forth his downfall. Anyway, I suspect that whisper ain't the reason you came looking for me. No, it's not. He set the critter on his shoulder and pulled out the artifact he came to identify. A double-cast ring of silver and gold with a peridot in either end, like two rings stuck together. I found this in a crypt dungeon recently, the one under the old Stargazer's tower to the south. She took the ring and gave it a once-over. Interesting. It's double enchanted. Pardon? Double enchanted. It has two distinct functions depending on how it's used. She hobbled away to peer at the ring under the spyglass mounted to her counter. What are the functions? You can't expect me to know that right away. Give me a minute. She looked the ring over from every angle, investigating every etching in the metal, every cut in the stones, watching ethereal shapes Eon couldn't see. He watched from where he stood. He understood this was part of her process, but couldn't fathom what she was seeing or looking for. Interesting. What? Gwen swung the spyglass away and took the ring back to Eon. It's an espionage tool made for spies. If you put it on with the gold side facing the tip of your finger, it makes others ignore your presence. Not invisibility, but just as effective, if not more so. He took the ring in awe. And the silver side? That one's more complicated. You don't put it silver side out on yourself. You put it on the finger of whoever you're interrogating, and they can't take it off or lie. Like that, it can only be removed by whoever put it on them. He looked at the ring with conflicted morals. A ring for getting information from an enemy without getting spotted on the way in or out. He wasn't one for sneaking around or using underhanded tactics like this, but couldn't deny the power behind such an artifact. To be able to pull the truth out of someone he gave the ring to. That sounded like something he would have liked to have a few years ago. He considered a certain authoritative and dishonest man, his friend, once. You've got that furrowed brow again, Eon. Something bothering you? He feels tempted by the power of guaranteeing an honest answer, but his morals in using such an underhanded method conflict him. I kind of can't help but question the morality of using such an artifact. I'm not telling you to use this thing, it's yours, you can pawn it for all I care. Gwen returned to investigating the artifact she was looking at when he came in. Eon tucks the ring into his pocket to keep it handy. If you don't mind me asking, what's that? I do mind you asking. Never mind then. Gwen glances up at Eon. I'd be careful with that ring. There's people who'd kill to have something like that. Which is another reason to sell it off. He turned to leave the hut. The hag didn't respond as he left the building. Eon stepped out of the hut, and his whisper friend clung to his shoulder, dangling behind his back. You should keep it, Master. No chance. You know I don't like to get involved in shit like this. He pulled out the ring to look it over. To think such a simple thing could have such a use. Information is a powerful thing to have. An absolute means of getting it is something any crooked leader would love to get their hands on. He tucked the ring back into his pocket. I don't want to be the guy they kill to get it. I'll make it someone else's problem. The whisper flinched. That's kind of selfish. It's called staying safe. Eon tucked the ring back in his pocket and started walking back to the main road. The underbrush kept catching on his clothes and gear, but he tore through and pressed on until the way cleared out. The dirt road leading back to town was long and would follow the flowing curve of the landscape. Eon walked quickly with his eyes glancing everywhere. He fumbled the ring out of his pocket and slipped it on, gold side out. If anyone was watching him, they weren't now. Then he thought that if he kept the ring, then he could just make everyone and everything ignore him at a moment's notice. He hadn't realized until then that the very thing that could make him a target would also protect him from being targeted. Maybe he should keep it after all. As he walked, he looked at the whisper riding on his shoulder. He was no stranger to seeing it looking around at the world like a curious child as he walked. However, right now, its gaze seemed locked on one particular spot off the side of the road. He couldn't see anything where it was looking, and it never took its gaze off that one spot as he moved. Gwen said that whispers knew things. Was there something there that its empty black eyes could see, and he couldn't? Regardless of whatever answer was true, Eon started walking faster.